my alarm clock goes off at 3:28.
Wow.
The consistency of that's where the growth's at. What it takes for me to do what I would like to do is not necessarily what it would take for you.
Right.
So for the growth to happen and the things that I'm working on and the things that I would like to show up in the market and be, that's what it takes for me.
Welcome back to the Growth Over Comfort podcast. I am your co-host, Randy Anderson, joined today again by my awesome co-host, Steve Miller.
Yes, sir.
And today is going to be a fun episode. We are actually, first, let me just say thank you for coming back to episode 2. Like, you're awesome. And let's see. So for this episode, what we're going to talk about is growth. And we're going to start on growth and just keep chatting about growth and see where that takes us. Since, the first episode, if you missed it, please go back and check it out. We just basically talk about expectations for the show and things that we want to do, and then a little bit about ourselves. And in this one, I kind of want to dive into growth and discuss all things about growth. So let's just jump right into it, and let's just ask, why is it important to grow?
I think the biggest thing in growth, and we talk about growth over comfort, one of the things I've learned over time is that you're never standing still. You're never okay. I've arrived. I've made it. I'm at this point. So now I'm just going to stay here. I've made this level. I'm going to stay here. I think the quote is, you're either growing or you're dying. So, if you're not growing, you're steadily sliding. You're steadily moving to the bottom. And I think that's true in everything: business, athletes, parents, kids. School, the whole thing. You think of whatever you're in, and you're probably going to struggle if you're not continually striving to grow.
For sure. And I think, too, that if you're not growing, someone else is. And when that comes to business, I mean, that's especially tough if you have competitors that are on your heels, because they're not going to stop, So
I think the worst thing that can happen to somebody in business is there's really no competition in their market.
Right.
And then they think that, okay, I can just do what I'd like to do. I also think the worst thing that can happen to you in business is for somebody to come into your market that really doesn't care about what you're doing. They're only trying to set their standard and work to a standard and grow and continue to be better every day. And when you encounter one of those, it's a problem.
Yes.
In sports, when I was coaching, we were always pretty good, and our level and our standards kept us, at a certain point. But when you encounter those teams that they're playing to a standard as well, it becomes a real issue. They're not trying to beat you. They're just simply trying to beat the standard that they have.
Right, because they've been showing up every day for practice. They've been showing up on all the drills, and they know everything, and they've been executing them daily. And so then when they get to the game, they're saying, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Right. I'm doing what I've learned, my drills, all of that. And if I execute those like I've executed 100 times, 1,000 times in practice,
right,
then I know I'm going. The outcome is I'm going to do the things, and the outcome of that is winning.
Right, and I think if you paid attention to basketball at all on the men's side in college, you realize that UConn's doing that right now. They're kind of silent. We're silent. They won it last year. They turned around and won it again this year. And one of the things, I saw an interview with their coach at a halftime of a game, and they're up like 40-17.
Wow.
And he's really upset with how they're playing defense and can't believe that they've worked as hard as they've worked, and they still don't understand the simple concept of getting into the right spot and doing the right thing defensively. And they're up 40-17.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what the score is for them.
Right.
What matters is are we growing, are we moving, are we getting better? We have a standard. We've set the standard. Why are we not progressing beyond the standard that we have? We should be beyond this level right now.
Right, for sure. And I think a race too makes me think of this. Anytime that you're running, or I imagine, because I've never been in a sprint race. Like I've never been a sprinter. I do run, but I'm definitely not like a track guy.
Right.
But I imagine if you're running on the track, and there's ever a moment where one guy gets ahead, that guy's ahead for a reason. He doesn't get ahead, then look back and see everyone behind him, and then he just kind of coasts. It's like, I did it. Like, no, he's going to just keep going.
Right.
Those winners are going to win because they're going to keep going.
Right.
You know, the moment you start to look around, you start to lose focus. It kind of actually reminds me of Peter with Jesus on the when he's walking on the ocean on the sea, and it's like you start looking around and you start sinking.
But we're talking about growth. Can you imagine the incredible level of growth that he had to be able to step out of a boat and walk on water?
Yeah.
So his growth level is like level 400. You know, it's way past 10. He's way beyond 10.
Right.
But then the human side of him, like you just said, once he steps out on the water, it's not comfortable anymore.
Yeah.
He hasn't grown to the place that the things around him doesn't impact him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's impacted in a major way. He was smart enough to say, "Hey, Jesus, save me, I'm drowning."
Yeah.
But he had also grown far enough to get out there and to be out. And I think that's one of the biggest things in growth.
But I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that story, even too, because he doesn't know how to walk on water. He said, "Call me out to you." You know.
He don't have a clue.
Yeah, and I mean, anyone who ever starts a business, it's kind of similar. They have no clue what they're doing. I mean, really, like, you know a few things. So, like, I know how to do video. I know how to post things on social media.
Right.
I don't know how to balance. I was going to say balance a checkbook. I know how to do that. I don't know how to balance, or do like a profit loss sheet. Or, I mean, I guess I do now. But when I started, I didn't. You know, I didn't know how to make sure that the right amount of tax was pulled out for employees every paycheck. You know, but I felt called to go do it. So here we are.
Yeah, and it's great that you did that and worked through those things. One of the things that I've been studying and listening, some of the top experts in the world will tell you, master one thing. A lot of people are out there and they're like, I want to look like that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. You know, we've talked, you know, episode 1 about, you know, we're brand new in the podcast world. Well, you talk about Ed Milet. You talk about all of the guys that have gone ahead that are pioneers that are now on level. They're up. You look at them, everything's polished. Their studio's clean. Everything about it, you're like, man, I wanted to do that. Yeah. You don't show up there.
No.
Those guys have put in countless hours. I heard his daughters talking about his schedule today. They're like, you see my dad on social media, and it looks cool. But he did 320 dates last year.
Wow.
Like one day he's in Las Vegas, the next day he's in Dubai, the next day he's in Cleveland. 320 days that he's out working and growing. And guys on that level understand something that most don't understand, and that's that you do things nobody else does so you can grow.
Yeah.
And it's still hard for him. It's still difficult for him, which allows him to do what he's doing.
Yeah. I heard this recently on a podcast. Actually, it was yesterday. It was from Alex Hormozy. And this kind of goes in with growth. He talks about breathing, that when you grow, it's kind of like breathing at a different altitude.
Right.
So if you are here at sea level, it's easy to breathe. But then you go to like Colorado or somewhere, or you start to go summit, or you're trying to summit a mountain or something, you got to get acclimated to that,
Right.
what it's like to breathe there, and you're going to pass out otherwise. And he said it's hard to breathe at that level. When you start piling on responsibilities, it gets hard to breathe. But then eventually you get acclimated to it. And It's not that hard to breathe. And he said when you realize, oh, I can run forever because I'm at this altitude now because it's not that bad. That's when it's time to grow more. Or you could stay there.
Right.
Or you could grow more.
Yeah. One of the things Jim Rome says, and he makes a statement, if somebody gives you $1 million, you better learn to be a millionaire real quick.
Right?
Because you've skipped a lot of steps.
Yeah.
And skipping the steps, you can skip them, but you won't get to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be short-lived. You'll be out quick.
All right, so let's talk about what is a situation maybe in this past week or maybe just in the past month that you chose to grow versus being comfortable.
I think the biggest one for me, I've been getting up and doing workout stuff for a while now. I get up about 4:30, start the workout at 5.
Yeah.
But for some reason, my body was starting to wake up 3:15, 3:30, somewhere in that range. So I thought, well, if I'm going to wake up at that time, I might as well get up and do something productive. In my mind, that's what I said. My body and the rest of me was like, no, we want to lay back down and go to sleep. Nobody gets up at that time. You just need to sleep. So on the growth side, for me to do what I would like to do, not necessarily everybody, but for me to do the things that I currently would like to do, and for me to grow and have a growth curve that I need to do, my alarm clock goes off at 3:28.
Wow.
I get up, I take like some creatine and drink some lemonade most of the time, or some water, and I sit there and I read the Bible and read a book and study and pray until it's time for me to get ready and go do the workout. Now, the consistency of that's where the growth's at. I've been able to be real consistent in that at this point, but it's a curve that is unique right now for me. And I'll just tell you where it comes from. You know, Nick Saban, you know, the famous ex-coach now of the University of Alabama, said, you know, it takes what it takes. You know, what it takes for me to do what I would like to do is not necessarily what it would take for you.
Right.
So for the growth to happen and the things that I'm working on and the things that I would like to show up in the market and be, that's what it takes for me. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Yeah, I'll answer the same question. It's funny because my answer is waking up early as well, but not nearly to that extreme. So I am not an early riser. In fact, I stay up late most of the time editing or working on business stuff. And so most of the time I'm not going to bed early enough to be able to get up something like that early. But this past, it was Monday when we filmed our first episode. My choosing growth was to get up at 5 that day and get over here and set everything up before you came in at 8.
Right.
Because none of this was set up.
Oh, wow.
And and it was like, I mean, I think it's funny that we both chose the same example of getting up early or getting up out of bed even. Just because when you think of comfort, and we'll get on comfort more in the next episode, but a bed is so comfortable. Like, that's comfort.
Oh, yeah.
And then getting out of that's discomfort. But discomfort is where the growth happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just funny that we both chose the exact
But the
same.
crazy piece now is that I'm not uncomfortable getting up at that time.
Right.
I've grown into that.
The needle has moved for you.
The needle has moved. Right.
Yeah.
So what was extremely uncomfortable is now just a little bit of an inconvenience, and I'm up.
Yeah. What time do you go to bed to be able to get up early like that?
Oh, if I could go to bed at 7, I would. But it's normally 8:30.
Okay. Yeah.
To be able to do that. So I still try to get the right amount of sleep in to be able to, to be able to function during the day.
Yeah. That's good. I'll make sure I won't text you past
It's
a certain time.
I probably will not respond.
I'm thankful because you send me texts every morning that I always appreciate. I'm glad you don't do that at 3.
I'm going to start sending them out at 3:28.
Oh, man. Oh, I just shot myself in the foot.
No, you're good. You're good.
That's funny. So another question for anyone listening, what's something that they can do, that almost anyone can do, that chooses growth over comfort? And I mean, really, getting up early is a pretty obvious one. But what do you?
I'll say right now that the getting up early is not for everybody.
Yeah, it's not.
My wife's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something easy, if you're looking for something that will make an impact in your life, and you're looking for something that will really help you grow, pick up the Bible, read whatever day of Proverbs that it is. So if it's the 12th, read Proverbs chapter 12. It's an easy change. It's an easy shift in your life. And you say, well, I'm not a religious person, or I'm not, I'm not a Jesus person, or I'm not interested in the Bible. Well, you're interested in wisdom. And that book's all about wisdom in life and how to handle yourself and how to actually grow in your life. So if I can encourage somebody to do one thing that's easy. It takes about 5 minutes. And you can completely change your life if you'll do that consistently.
That's really good. And you can find it online. The Bible's online. It's on your phone. Easy. So you don't have to have a physical copy. But yeah, that's really good. Now this is interesting. Can choosing growth over comfort ever be a bad thing?
I think there are three ways that you grow. There are three reasons you grow. I think number one, you grow because you know it's the right thing for you, and you know you need to grow, and you know if you don't grow that you're going to decline. So you understand that, you make that choice. You grow because there are people in your life that you care about, and you would really like to see them have something that's worthy to follow. Like my grandkids. You know, I want to be a superhero for my grandkids. So, you know, part of that's like getting all the fat off of this body. You know, there are not a lot of fat superheroes. So I would, you know, I'm working toward that. So number one, I'll be around to be able to play with my grandkids. But number two, when they see me, like, man, I'd like to be like my granddad.
Yeah.
Man, that guy puts it in. He works. You know, he makes an effort. And then the third thing I think you run into when you talk about growth is there's some growth issues that happen because you do really, really stupid stuff. I mean, you make decisions that cause you to have to grow. And I think that type growth sometimes can be a bad thing. Yeah. Because you can end up in some bad situations because you grow in the wrong direction. Don't kid yourself. Growth is growth. And if you're moving in a direction, you know, you can become the best alcoholic that's ever lived.
Yeah.
You can become the number one drug addict that's ever been on the planet. You can grow in those areas. And those are really, really bad places to grow. And those are really bad decisions, but people make them all the time.
Yeah.
So I think you can make some choices that are bad for you, that you grow toward that and move toward that, and it's really tough. What do you think in that?
No, I think that's really good. I mean, we talked in the first episode about direction, you know, what direction you're going in. I think it's always good to take a step back sometimes and look down at the path you're walking.
Right.
So that kind of ties into the number 3 that you just said is, you know, what am I becoming the best of? Well, right now, it's a alcoholic person or a drug user. I mean, obviously, it's time to pivot, time to move away from that.
Right.
And now, as far as answering my own question about can growth over comfort ever be a bad thing, I think that comfort and rest are two different things.
Yeah.
And I think that burnout is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And choosing growth every time doesn't mean you have to go to the point where you're burning out.
Right.
Because we talked a little bit about this off camera the other day. When you work out and you do a strenuous weightlifting exercise workout, and then I know it doesn't look like it, but I do that. I lift weights.
We're doing work. We're putting it in.
We're putting it in. Yeah. When you do those weightlifting workouts, heavy weightlifting, you have to let your muscles rest because you literally tore them to some degree, and now they're building up stronger and back together. But I have to also say what we learned, and when we talked about that, is that if you truly did lift weights, you realize that rest is not comfortable. You're sore. You are very sore.
Right. My wife's dealing with that right now. She got started back Wednesday.
Nice.
And this is Friday, and she's struggling
Yes.
today. You know, day 2 is the hard day.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, 100%.
she's having a hard time,
Yeah.
you know, right now with that. And one of the things I heard this week that I thought was really neat is like the root system of a tree, of a healthy tree, and the tree almost look identical, but you can't see the root system.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of times in growth, you don't see what's growing underneath. You see the outshoot of that.
Above.
Yeah, you see the above of that. And you know, I like the saying the guy had, you know, he said, you don't see the root, but you get to pick the fruit. And I'm like,
That's good.
That's really strong when you're talking about growth. Because it's what goes deep within you that really changes things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that whole analogy of a seed, planting a seed, watering it, making sure it gets sunlight, and not disturbing the soil. And underneath it is the root is shooting out and going and spreading and finding influence, building a network, letting those muscles rest and grow back bigger, larger. And then the very top just whoop, little shoot.
Yeah.
But that shoot can grow into this massive tree.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So
And it can happen quick.
that's good. All right. I think that is it for today. Discussion on growth. check back for the next episode, which should be launched within a day or so. We're going to talk about comfort, the other side of this equation. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure talking about growth, and make sure that you subscribe or share the podcast. Wherever you're watching this, do the thing you're supposed to do. You know what to do. See y'all.